Yo, what's up? I'm making this video for a particular audience. First, I want to tell you a little something about me. Disregard this rough exterior. Growing up, I was a nerd. All right? I was a late bloomer. I think the only thing that saved me growing up was that although I was a nerd, I was willing to fight. Like, I always had a good gauge on when somebody was trying to be disrespectful or trying to take advantage. So, win or lose, I was always down to fight. You know what I'm saying? And my advice to anyone is to stand up for yourself. Not necessarily fight, because in this day and age, things are different now. There were guns in my time, yeah, but young 15, 16-year-olds weren't really, gunning it down like that, like they are now. All right? So I would definitely advise you to stand up for yourself, but also be aware, right, of your surroundings and the people that you might be having a problem with. The best thing is to avoid, but if you can't avoid it, then face it. I always believed in facing your fears. Always face your fears. Go towards it. Don't run away from your fears. Go towards it. Because when you run away from your fears, it haunts you. It pops up at the worst time. Handle that. All right. Growing up, right, I was always, first of all, I was raised by my mother and my father, and I thank God for that. My father had a certain influence in me. He instilled in me that manhood and that work ethic. My father was a merchant marine, and my mother taught me about God, and she instilled in me standing up for myself. My mother was a little lady from Puerto Rican, but she took no shorts. None. So, growing up, I always admired the police, right? I was that little kid that would drag my mother by the hand every time she saw a cop. Every time I saw a cop. And I'd be like, Mommy, take me. And I was never afraid of them or anything like that. And I always had a positive response from them. I mean, little kid. I was like 4, 5, 6. But then as I got older, I started seeing cops differently. I saw them as nerds. Once I started getting to know a little bit about the street, or thinking that I was getting to know about the street, I saw cops as nerds. For some reason, I don't remember why I got that feeling, but I did. And I remember one time after playing basketball in the Bronx at the Mashalou Montefiore Community Center. Me and the boys went to the spot that we used to always go to. I think it was like a Jamaican spot. And we used to always go there to eat, hang out for a little while after we played ball. So boom, as I got inside, there was a cop there. He was a black dude. So now my attention wasn't even on my boys no more. I was like checking this dude out. And for the first time, I saw a cop that wasn't a nerd. I mean, this guy, he was talking to the person behind the counter, and he had style. He was cool. And I was intrigued. I was like, oh shit, this guy looks cool. So I stepped to him. I went right up to him. I said, what's up, man? How you doing? He looked at me. He said, yo, what's up? And I said, yo, you like this job? And he said, yeah, it's all right. It's cool, I said, yo, can I be honest with you? He goes, what's up? I said, for some reason, I thought cops were nerds, but you don't look like a nerd. He goes, nerd? Nah, bro. Far from it. You know, I'm from the Bronx. And he told me, I'm from the Bronx, bro. You know, I grew up in a not so good neighborhood, but I was always respected in my neighborhood. I said, all right. He goes, why? You thinking about coming on a job? And I said, yeah, I kind of am. How do you go about that? So he explained the whole process to me, right? And I was like, oh, okay, all right. And fast forward, I kept that shit on my mind. And I was like, yo, man, I'm going to try to do this, you know? And I always remember hearing that you only had to do 20 years. And the streets they're not like they are now, but, you know, things would jump off. And I said to myself, man, you get to carry a gun legally, and you wear that uniform, you know, and that dude look cool in his uniform. I said, if I get on the job, I'm going to look cool too, because I was always into working out. Kind of, after COVID, I kind of let that slide, but hopefully in the near future, I can get back into it. Anyway, so as time went on, I said, you know what, I'm going to do this. And I started looking into it. I used to buy that newspaper called The Chief, right? Oh, by the way, well, I don't know if I mentioned this, but we're in New York City. Right now, I'm not in New York. Right now, I'm in Spain. I'll tell you that what I'm doing here later is very interesting. That's where my message to you people who are in underprivileged, or I don't know how you say it, but neighborhoods where things are really not looking up, you know, poor neighborhoods. I'm really talking to you. I'm talking to anybody who's interested, but my message is to you, right? Because where I grew up in the Bronx, it wasn't a bad neighborhood, but it was rough. We used to live up the block from some projects, Eastchester projects, and there was some wild boys in there. You know what I mean? So it wasn't like a great neighborhood. Anyway, time went on. Got me a little job in McDonald's. Never forget, the managers were these two twins named Dorian and Derek Malloy. That was their last name. Dorian and Derek Malloy. If you guys ever see this video, what's up? And they had a young brother named Keith. Younger dude. He worked there too. Anyway, so time went on, and I started taking all the civil service exams. That's the first jewel I'm dropping. All right? Get the newspaper called The Chief. Right? Unless you already know what you want to do with your life, get the newspaper called The Chief. Comes out every Tuesday at your better newsstands. The Chief newspaper. It's going to tell you all the city, state, and federal jobs. All right? So I started getting that. Boom. I started taking every exam. I took the police department. I took sanitation. I took everything, even meter maids. You know what I mean? Now, I probably wasn't going to take that job anyway, but I took it. So, the first ones to call me were, the agency was the Human Resource Administration, right? And the test that I took was called Special Officer. Sounds like a big deal, but no disrespect to special officers, because I respect anybody who works. But it was like a security guard job. But they called it Special Officer for some reason. I ended up working in this place called the Emergency Assistance Unit at 271 Church Street, Manhattan. So basically, that was a place where people used to go, like if they were, if they were homeless, yeah, they used to go there, but it was more like people who were victims of a fire, or they got kicked out, or anything like that. The mayor at the time was named Mayor Koch, right? So I was there, and I want to say big up to this guy named Willie Valentin. Willie Valentin was a real good dude from Brooklyn. Puerto Rican dude from Brooklyn. Real solid dude. And it was weird, my feelings towards him, because I admired him, but at the same time, I felt sorry for him because he had gotten fired from the New York City Police Department. So he basically got where I wanted to go, but he got fired, I just want to make sure this thing's running. So he used to talk to me. He was a real positive dude. And he told me, listen, man, this is the first time I heard the phrase or the saying that if you think you could do it, you'll do it. And if you think you can't do it, you won't. It's all about believing in yourself. That's the second jewel I'm dropping. You got to believe in yourself. And whatever you want, you got to go after that. You got to. You got to go after it. Don't listen. Listen to me. It's funny. It's like a oxymoron. I was about to say, don't listen to people. Now I'm saying, listen to me. I should rephrase that. Don't listen to negative people. Don't. Laugh at that. Or do like me. I use negativity as fuel. If you come at me on some negative crap, I'm going to use it as fuel. At my age and at the stage in my life, I have two lists. The first one is God and all the positive people that I've had in my life and that I have in my life, right? Because without a doubt, they helped me get to where I'm going and to where I've been in the positive way. Now, my second list is the haters, right? And I know this sounds weird, but I thank them too. Thank God first and foremost because he gave me the insight and the ability to turn negativity into positivity, right? He gave me that strength. Like from a young age, if you were negative towards me, I would be like, see, all right, watch me. And my life has been like that. Later on, I hope I remember, I got a good story about that. I'm going to try to do some more of these videos. If you're bored or whatever, you check me out. You ain't got to subscribe. You ain't got to give a thumbs up because this ain't really about that. This is about reaching a few people. All right? So, Willie Valentin, he instilled in me, go for what you know. You know what I mean? Like, if you really want something, you got to go after it. And then one day he tells me, I know you really want to be a police officer. So you're going to get there. Because I can see how much you want it. And even just hearing that, I felt good. So, time went on. One day this hater named Captain Brathwaite with the special officers came in. Now, I'm not going to lie, I was drinking a beer with Willie. Me and Willie were having a beer. At that time, they call them quarts. We were having a quart of Old English. And we're talking shit back and forth. He always has some positive stories to tell me and some negative ones too, Anyway, so the last thing we expected, boom, Captain Brathwaite. The doors were about 25 feet away, so we see him. So I get up. I played off like I didn't see him. I get up. and it were a bunch of clothes. I just grabbed them and put it on top of the beer. And I was like, oh man, I hope this dude don't see this, man. Anyway, so he came and he started riffing. He didn't see the beer, but he started riffing about like menial stuff, like stuff that like a cool dude wouldn't have even went there. And I can't even remember what, but I was a young dude. I was like 19. And I was looking at him like, yo, this older dude is like a sucker. Like he was beefing for nothing. You know, had he caught us with the beer, then I could see him beefing, but he didn't. So Willie was a real stand-up dude from Brooklyn, right? And Willie wasn't having it. Willie was like, you know, he stood his ground. And whatever it was about, he was telling him, no, this, that, and the other thing. And the captain said, all right, no problem. And he left. The very next day, there were 2 transfers. Willie was going to Brooklyn, which I think they did him a favor because he was from Brooklyn. And I was going to the Manhattan Men's Shelter. Now, for those of you who don't know, men's shelters are supposed to be for like homeless, right? Nah. This men's shelter was full of predators. Like straight, like if you was homeless and you was weak and you went in there, you were gonna get your sneakers taken. If you had a coat, they were taking it. They were taking your food. Whatever you had, they would prey on you. That was actually the first time I saw 2 dudes kissing too. You know? It was the first time. It was weird because they had this big window on the 2nd floor, and sometimes I would just be bored and I'd be looking out the window. And I remember I saw these 2 dudes kissing. And remember, I'm 19, maybe almost 20. And I was like, I wasn't mad at them, but I was just shocked because I had never been exposed to anything like that. Right? And I also remember realizing that gay doesn't mean weak. Doesn't mean weak because the one guy I remember that was kissing this other guy, he got into a brawl. So we had to go out there and break it up. So I grabbed this guy, right? Yo, I'm not gonna lie to you. This cat was strong. I mean, I couldn't handle this dude. Now, he must have been about 25 to 30, but he was solid. I remember saying, wow, like for some reason, call me naive, but I was in shock at how strong this dude was. I mean, he was really, really powerful. And it took a couple of us, but, we got the situation under control. And I'm sorry, I know I'm jumping all around. I'm really going off the dome with this. I'm going from my memory. So I learned a lot. Now, we had a sergeant there. His name was Paschal. He was a sucker, another sucker. A brother, too, but he was a sucker. All right? Now, I'm going to let you know something about me. I'm black, right? But I'm Puerto Rican and Honduran. My mother's from Puerto Rico and my father's from Honduras. For those of you Latinos, or whether you're Dominican or Puerto Rican, if you're this color, you're black. I know a lot of you are confused, thinking that, no, I'm Spanish. It's not a color, all right? Check your history. And if you don't believe me, check your DNA, all right? We all come from our origins. When you dark, when you got color like this, when you brown, you come from Africa. That makes you black. So I'm trying to school you, Hispanics that feel differently, and I'm also schooling some of you brothers that don't consider a Puerto Rican dude black. You're wrong. We're black. All right? We're black. Picture there being an uprising and the white people start. I mean, this is just hypothetical, right? There's an uprising. You think if some white people run up on me, I'm gonna get a pass because I'm gonna start talking Spanish? Nah. Get it right, Latinos and Latinas. If you got color to you, and even if you don't, because look at your history, especially I'm talking about Puerto Ricans and Dominicans, Latinos, right? You come from Taino Indians and Africans and Spaniards. We got a mix. Don't get it twisted. You know, I remember recently I heard about some lady out in California calling like the kids. She was some kind of politician, or I don't know what the hell she was, and I don't care, right? But she called like some kids of some of her co-workers monkeys. And meanwhile, she's a Latina. Y'all can't stand that type. I can't stand that type. All right, you don't know your history. All right. Anyway, I'm getting off track. So yeah, so I went to the men's shelter, but we had the sergeant. He was a sucker. He used to mess with us. He used to mess with us constantly. So honestly, I got tired of him. I was on that job a little over 3 years, right? And I wasn't feeling it anymore. You know, it wasn't what I thought. Like anything else, there was politics, but I didn't know about that. Remember, it's my first real job. I mean, I worked at McDonald's prior to that, but that wasn't, not that it wasn't a real job, but it wasn't what I wanted. All right? I respect, listen, you work at McDonald's, I respect you. All right? Like I said before, I respect any working person. All right? So now, McDonald's. I got fired from there. I got another story about that I hope I remember. I got fired from there. Because I used to live across the street, and I was late every day. Every day. First, before firing me, they gave me 1 day a week. Only when the truck came in, I used to unload the truck. And then they got tired of me, and one of the twins, I think it was Derek. Was it Derek? Anyway, one of the twins fired me. And I was like, all right, I understand. He saw me, like I used to have to take that route every day. And he saw me like a month later, and he called me over. He goes, yo, come here, man. He goes, yo, man, I didn't really want to fire you. You want your job back? And even at a young age, that time I was like 16, he asked me if I wanted my job back, and I said, nah. I was prideful. Wrong or right, I was. So I'm only going to go for a half hour. I'm going to try to do these in half-hour increments. So I was at the HRA, right? They called it the Human Resources Administration Police. The real title was Special Officer. So I went to the men's shelter, and that was an eye-opening experience. Eye-opening. I mean, you had some rough cats in there. A lot of those guys were fresh from up north, from out of jail. A lot of them. They were fresh. They had a program where they used to go to their program and then come to the men's shelter to get fed. And some of them lived inside the shelter, or they would get bused to other shelters. So it was an eye-opening experience. It really was. It really was. I worked with even some of the officers were rough too. They were rough. So I got tired because this dude, the Sergeant Paschal, the Sergeant Paschal, he was just being too much of a sucker. And I knew that was just a stepping stone for me. And if I wanted to get to the police department, he was going to be something that was going to stop me. He was going to be an impediment. You like that word? Impediment. He was going to block. And another jewel is never tell people your plans. Don't tell people your plans, because if they're haters, that's what they're gonna do. They're gonna hate on you, and they're gonna try to stop you. You know, unfortunately, out there, you have good people, but you have a lot of bad people too. And if you run into that bad person, they can stunt your growth. You know, they can stunt your growth. They can stop it. And that might lead to you becoming bitter, you know. And it happened to me a lot. It happened to me a lot. But what I thank God for is that He made me strong. And I persevered and I fought. Just like my man Willie Valentin from Brooklyn. Yo, if you came at me wrong, I would fight you. Remember, as a young dude, I was a nerd, but I would fight you, win or lose. You know, I got a couple of fat lips, bloody noses, and I gave a couple too. And I gave a couple. But I was a dude that went to school, you know, and there's nothing wrong with being a nerd. Sometimes now, at my older age, I'll still act like a nerd. But what's good is that now I'm very secure in myself. Very secure. So it doesn't matter what people think. That's jewel number 3. Don't worry about what people think. Don't worry about that. Do what you have to do. All right? Have your goals. Set short-term goals and long-term goals and get to them. And there's going to be setbacks. Look at it as a ladder, right? And you might get to that 3rd step and boom, you might get knocked down to the 1st, but that's all right. Go hard. Get to the 5th, 6th, and get to your goal. And when you get to your goal, make new goals. And never stop chasing excellence. Never stop. You got to chase excellence. All right? Because I believe, I'm not a church guy, but I believe very strongly in God. And I have a strong personal relationship with God. Okay? Have faith in God. Talk to God. Pray. Ask Him for strength. I've been through so many situations that I could never deny the existence of God. I could never do that. Anyway, so I got tired of this dude, Paschal. So I applied for this job in Co-op City in the Bronx. They had their own little security. I know they hate being called that, but at the time, that's what they were called. Now they're River Bay Police or Co-op City Police. At that time, they were not. They were actually, the title was the title was Special Patrolman. They were security guards. We had sticks. So I applied for that. And I got called for that in the next week. 1 week. So I felt really good when I went back to the shelter and I was like, yo, I'm out of here. My life has kind of been like that. You'll see as we go on. So I went to Co-op City. And I was actually on patrol. It was cool. I liked it. I had a lot of fun. I don't want to go past 30 minutes. So I went there and I did my time there. But that wasn't what I wanted. Remember, my goal was the police department. So I started applying for other jobs. I got called by I got called by the New York City Department of Corrections. That was it. I was on my way. Yeah, I took that job. I went to the academy. Used to be in Brooklyn. No, I'm sorry. It was in Queens, Middle Village, Queens. Right? I went to that academy. Almost got kicked out because of this girl that said some stupid shit. I told her basically to go blank herself, and she told on me. And I still stepped to her again when I saw her. You know what I mean? I said, yo, what you did was wrong, because she called me out during an exam. I had some gum in my mouth. I always have gum in my mouth. And during the test. Like everything's quiet. And she goes, Officer so-and-so. I look, she called my name. I looked up. I said, what? She goes, give me a to from on why you're chewing gum during the exam. So I said, blank you. She got up and went to the office. Told on me. She came back and she sat down and I ignored her. About 5 minutes later, I hear my name over the intercom. Officer so-and-so, come to the office. So I'm looking at her. I was like, wow, you really do? I said, all right. So I went to the office. They sat me down and said, listen, these dudes were cool, brothers. They said, listen, man, yo, you can't. Did you tell her to go blank herself? And I said, yeah. She goes, nah. He goes, nah, you can't do that, man. He goes, they could fire you for that. I said, yeah, but you know what? He goes, don't matter, man. The inmates are going to say a lot worse. So if you can't handle that here, he goes, listen, man, you're a big, strong guy. I'm 5'9". At the time, I was probably like 220, right? He goes, we need big, strong brothers like you. He goes, you got to watch yourself. So I said, all right. He goes, go back and finish your test, man, but just ignore her, man. He basically told me he knows, he understands. He goes, but that was a no-no. I was like, all right. So I went back, but I was furious. I was livid. So I went back, I did the test. And that same night, we used to park on the roof. I remember I had a Monte Carlo SS. I raced and I saw her. And she was walking with another brother, right? Oh, she was like the company sergeant. And so was he. She was the assistant company sergeant. Which I don't know why they do that, but that just creates a problem because your company sergeant, they call them companies, right? Your company sergeant could be somebody who has no street knowledge, no skills. And they could be your company sergeant, which that was the situation. And I went right up to them. And I told him, he goes, yo, you better talk to her. She better watch herself. She better watch herself. I said, just like that. And I'm not going to lie, I meant that. Because I'm reaching my goals. I'm living out my dreams, one goal at a time. And I said, nah. So that was the end of that. I stayed away from her. She never reported that incident right there. Graduated the academy. And boom, I got assigned to C95. Big up to my C95 people. To the officers and some of the inmates. Because I met some good people in there. I met some real good people. And somebody who comes to mind is James Rowe. Now, I'm going to end this video here. But when I do like the next part of this, I'm going to tell you about this inmate named James Rowe. James Rowe. Man, and he went away for life. I'm going to tell you a little bit about him, but I'm going to tell you how sometimes